Ladies and gentlemen, it's time now to move directly into our inaugural session at India Shopping Centre Forum 2016. The Mall Future Thinkpad, shaping the thinking on the future of retail spaces. The retail environment today is quite different from what it was 5 years ago, and quite different from what it will be 5 years hence. The challenges facing shopping centres and retail spaces is multiplying by the day. In this constantly changing scenario, how do we make customer delight? How do we tackle customers who are more savvy? How do we tackle retailers who are moving to omni-channel? Where lies the way forward for retail spaces? We have a distinguished panel of luminaries who will attempt to answer all these questions over the panel discussion. Please put your hands together for the Managing Director, Cushman & Wakefield, and the moderator of the session, Sanjay Dutt. Ladies and gentlemen, he is Senior Managing Director, Macquarie Infrastructure and Real Assets of Hong Kong. Please welcome Andrew J. Taylor. He is Founder and Chief Executive Officer, Mall Solutions Europe and former head Blue Water Shopping Centre UK. Please put your hands together for Byron Lewis. He is Chief Executive Officer and Country Head, H&M India. Please welcome Yane Enola. She is Managing Director and Chief Operating Officer, JM Financial Credit Solutions. A warm welcome to Tara Subramaniam. And of course, we have Mr. Krish Iyer, who just made that brief presentation. So it's over to Mr. Sanjay Dutt, our moderator, to take us through the session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate the opportunity to chair this interesting panel for this inaugural session. I'll get down to business straight away. This is about the Mall Future Thinkpad, shaping the thinking on the future of retail spaces. So obviously, it's very specific to the shopping center. I am taking the liberty of making few changes to it, and I'll tell you in a reason why I think it's relevant. I've been given this task of chairing the session after a very positive speech by Krish at a time when the shopping center ropes of development are in the hands of the developers in India. And what I can politely within this closed door rooms describe right now, for last 2 years, the developers were actually in the ICU. Last 1 year, they've gone into the ventilator. And we're talking about the future of the shopping centers as we speak. But there is always an opportunity. And when you look at from the different optics, and when we go through the session, I think you will realize why this is an opportunity. We've been talking about change, and a lot of us know that change is inevitable. I think what has happened recently is not change, it's called disruption. And that's the boardroom discussion that's going on right now around the world. The reason why business is now being challenged by disruption is because technology has really started to impact. And we will discuss the impact of e-commerce, although the first speech and the presentation covered that adequately. It'll more complement our businesses than actually challenge the retailers. But any change brings about certain challenges initially, and therefore you have to overcome those. Beside the technology, there is the economic environment that Krish spoke about, and I think we all are familiar. And the reason why India looks such a bad, in such a bad environment, such a bright spot, is because of the obvious, in percentage terms, when you look at the GDP. But I can bet when you look at, our situation on the ground in the country, somehow our salaries and others do not demonstrate that this is such a high growth economy, right? A lot of our professionals and a lot of consumers don't feel that impact. And the reason is very obvious, that the corporate earnings still continue to remain challenged. The government has obviously done a fantastic job of marketing India as a brand, as a destination. So we see a lot more investments coming in, and I'll give you a color of why that is real. So a lot of this is actually in transition, and that's good news. What we're going to do immediately is we're going to dive straight into our subject where we're going to talk about the changes that are happening in the retail space. And I'm going to start with John, with you, if you're okay. Uh, he's come in about a year ago, and I would like your impressions of India as a consumer and as a retailer. I'm sure we'll circle back and cover some more objectives. So over to you first.
Thank you. First of all, nice to be here. It's my first panel, so apologize if everything is not going like it should go. But India as a market for us, for the H&M, is the 61st market where we are entering from our company. We started the retail business 1947 from the Västerås in Sweden, and today we are the company with more than 4,000 stores in the 61 market. We run the operations in the brick and mortar, but also on the online. The current online model, what we have today, started already 2006, so there we have also 10 years experience how to combine the brick and mortar stores and the online. Because I think this is one thing what everybody is interested to hear about, that how it goes together. And to be honest, it goes really well together. It's a natural part of the business in the retail today. It will grow. We cannot deny it. We need to be only stronger, and everybody needs to find a new way of looking how the modern retail looks like, that these both channels will work. It's a cooperation between the retailers and between the owners, as you said earlier, and we as a company, we want to do this trip together with you all in India. We looked at the market, as said, 61 market, why to grow, why we want to come to India. We want to come since we see the huge potential here. India is a great market with the challenges, but we feel that these challenges will be solved in the longer term. We have been coming here not to try our business. We want to open our brick and mortar stores, not only use the easy chance and test on the online. We want to also take the responsibility of the contribute something for the country, not only doing the easy way and looking and take the money out. No, we are here to stay. H&M has never shut any market where they have been entered. So keeping that one in the mind with my team when you are talking. As a consumer and as a professional here on the retail, I see a huge potential. I moved here August 2015, and you know when you move, there is a lot what you need to buy. We came only with the luggages, and we rented a house in Delhi with the furniture. So we needed the food, we needed the basic things. And of course, as used to it in my own country, I went to the shopping center, and then I was realized that no, this is not working at all like I'm used to it. Because in the Europe, when you go to the shopping center, it's truly the place where you find everything. You find the services and you find the products what you look for. Unfortunately, in India, often the situation is that you don't find everything what you want. You maybe find a big bazaar, but they don't have a fresh things. So you need to go somewhere and buy your chicken somewhere else, as an example what I mean. And this all leads to the situation where I need to go to my sofa, yes, make the order in Amazon, yes, they deliver to my home, which I don't like. It's not sustainable at all. One package, travel a long way, it's packaged on the cartoons. This cartoon needs to disappear somewhere and so on and so on. And I think this is interesting, and that was the reason why I wanted to participating on this panel, because we see the great potential in the shopping centers. If we want to be, as a retailer who is operating more than 4,000 stores, be the partner for you, looking together how we can develop the shopping centers, how we can develop them in the way that we both benefit, in the way that we all are doing the good business. When looking I'm always saying to my team, and when we are talking or I'm meeting the landlords, here is also somebody that to make a lease agreement with H&M is like a marriage. And what I mean with that one, you have a good times and you have a bad times, but we need to work together to come over about those one. And I think this is the way how we need to work, and this is how we want to contribute for the country, open the stores. Our global target is to grow 10 to 15% each year. And looking to India, the market, the possibilities, what is here, I believe that our expansion will be much faster here than it's a global level. There, the example, we opened the first store 2nd of October last year in Delhi, Select City Mall, Select City, and today we have already 5 stores open, and in a few weeks we are opening our 6th stores. How many stores we will have actually operated in the end of year, that I will not tell to you, but I'm really proud to look at that figure in the end of year, because it will be something what none of the retailers has been done here before, the expansion in our field, when I'm looking my competitors. And with all this, we want to show for the market, for our customers, that we are here, we believe in the market, and we will continue to grow, and we want to be a truly pan-Indian company. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm just going to quickly move to Krish, and I'm going to set a context of my question first. There's 6 stakeholders in the shopping center or real estate development and retail entities. There's the state government, there is the central government controls the regulatory environment, there is the developer, there is the consumer, there is of course the retailer. I'm not counting consultants right now, but there is eventually an investor or stroke lender who invest money. And I wanted to ask, because one question that we all know, for some reason, shopping center development has not happened for many years, and there's a reason why. One, it was financially not viable at a certain point of time. Land valuations were too high, construction cost was going up, and somehow the rentals were not stacking up. And the other reason was the developers were over-leveraged. And then, of course, the government was not clear on the policy front. And the industry was challenged, and I think it shows and continues to show. So my question is, do we have the rationale now, and I know you're very optimistic about it, but looking at the challenges of the market, especially on the developer side and the investment side, and I'll come to Tara after this, that this kind of physical infrastructure, before we get into what kind of development, is actually going to happen next 2 to 3 years?
So, number one is that India is very nascent, at a very nascent stage in its development, whether you talk about shopping malls or whether you talk about retail. And when you see around the world, a lot of best practices are yet to be adopted in the country. Starting with purely the ease of doing business. So it is true that it's much easier to do business in many other countries, including the Southeast Asian markets, not just UK, US, and Europe, but even closer home, in our neighboring countries also. Doing business is easier. So some of the best practices of public policy, regulations, ease of doing business, they need to be brought in, and that's currently happening. The second part is that in terms of development of a shopping mall, I think keeping customer at the center of it. And there are 2 customers as far as a developer is concerned. One is the retailer, and second, of course, is the end consumer. So initially, I'm talking about the end consumer, keeping the end consumer at the center of it. And then next, keeping the retailer at the center of it. How do you create a very solid proposition and then look at the profitability and revenue? I think that will lead to development of shopping malls, which will be much more sustainable in the long run. And there are few shopping malls in the country which have followed that process, and we know that they continue to run very successfully over the last 5 years. There are very good stories. So it's about that focus on the customer that will become very important. And as you continue to focus on the customer, it's about the customer of tomorrow. So I really enjoyed the first presentation where you're talking about omni-channel experience. So bricks and mortar retailers are learning gradually to bring in that omni-channel experience. We are still quite far away in that journey. And while that is happening, I think the stories around malls really making a good attempt at omni-channel experience, they are still very few and far between in the country. So that is the second point in terms of the customer experience, the journey that malls need to undertake on serving the customer of tomorrow. And the third aspect is about, I think, models which will work. So revenue sharing models, greater levels of transparency in everything that you do between the developer and the investor. That becomes critical too. If the investor has to have the confidence that yes, the returns will be there in the medium to long term. So these are the three aspects which are, I think, very important.
Very quickly, I think because we have seen the herd mentality in the real estate development space, where the developers have moved from pan-India expansion to SEZs and hotels and shopping centers, and then suddenly towards residential, and now seems like affordable homes. More or less, all the investors and developers are at crossroads right now because there's a pileup of residential inventory. I do believe there's an opportunity for shopping centers and the retailers to create avenues of investment. And I think there's certain success stories and role models that if this industry can showcase of success, capital is there. So my question to you, Tara, if you want to take this up, and then we will move on to development focus, is you think in the Indian context, are we ready? 70 to 80,000 crores was lended to developers last year. Approximately that much is going this year. By the way, the cost of capital is close to 18% average that I'm talking about, right? And we have to create a model where the land valuation is 50 to 70% of the project cost, even today. And then you borrow on construction. And looking at the footfalls and the consumer experiences, all the investment that we need to create for the malls of tomorrow, how are we going to get this done?
How do we?
How are we going to get this done?
You know, I think the first thing what the retailers need to do is like what hotel industry is done. It's, I think you all need to invest in your staff. Most people, when they go shopping, whether it's man, woman, children, I think personal attention is so important. To a certain degree, I think also to massage the ego of the person who's spending the money is also important. And I think that is very, very much lacking in India, especially in the malls. Now, when we have these small stores around the corner where we've been going for generations, all of us have been going there with our grandparents, then our parents. You know, I think a certain amount of rapport has been invested with the owner or the owner's son. It makes it so much easier because they know exactly what you want. They know what your pocket, what fits in, and they'll show you what it is. But having said that, I think mall is an experience. It's going to be a destination place. And yes, when it comes to institutions, what we always look at is how do we exit from a loan. The risk is the exit part. All of us know that when you are lending to a retail, one has to have deep pockets and very long gestation period for the money to come back. And I don't think right now the banks and the NBFCs and the HFIs have that kind of money. It's only a Xander or a Capital Land, or if they have other funds that will come in, who will be able to give the money that is required to put up the kind of malls that we require in the country. And also, developers should realize that just building a mall is not going to be sustainable or a success. The whole management, the whole format is different. So I think you should just leave it to the people who are the experts. So it makes it easier even for the institution lenders to give you the money, so that what happens is you're assured that the money is going to come back. What I suggest is that really what you should look at is somebody who's an equity player or people who are investors who also have an interest in the project. If they are the kind of people you should tap for further expansions.
Thank you, Tara. I'll very quickly move to the development because that's what we are talking about in this session. And this would be open to all the panelists, so you please step in. there is a lot of change happening around social, lives, and especially in a country like India where you have so many young people, and people look at, $1 billion of mobile connections, 300 million, smartphones, and increasing rapidly to the extent that iPhone has decided to kind of now launch their products as an Apple, a major player in that space. And they, obviously there's technology which is enabling as well. In that backdrop, what kind of future developments that you think that we will be able to create, which will be economically sustainable, at the same time will be able to blend with the new ecosystem? So it's a very broad question, but if you can reflect on the dynamics of the market and also the opportunities. So if you've done a development, looking at you, Andrew, for example, if you've done Blue Waters, and if you were to make some changes or adapt that to India, what would be those? That could perhaps be a starting point, looking at the dynamics and demographics of India, and also the statutory challenges. And I just mentioned the high cost of capital, the economics, all of that put together. What do you think you would do in this country?
Looking through the ethos when Blue Water was built back in 1999, our ethos was to lead the world in shopping and leisure by exceeding expectations of all. And it's all very much based on the experience of from when you leave home to when you get to the mall. So when you arrived into the mall at Blue Water, you had hosts which welcomed you, and it was very much also leading into the shop fits. We had a team of 80 people to develop 300 stores for 2 years. So there's 80 retail development managers working with the retailers to create the most amazing and innovative shop fronts, double height. And that's what set Blue Water apart set a new benchmark in the UK and Europe. And so very much, the experience, it's all about the customer experience.
Fully agree. We say to our employers that we want to exceed the customer's experience when they are coming to the store. This is what we are focusing to. Each individual who is entering our store, when they are leaving from the stores, they need to feel that we have been exceed their expectations when they are coming to the store. What you said about the service level, I fully agree. How we are doing that one, we employ our employers 6 months before they start their work. We train them skills because the expectations what we have to our employers are not usual in the retail currently in Indian market. The reason is not the Indian people, it's how the retail is organized here. Only 8% is organized retail, rest is wild. And this wildness you also see in the shopping experience, unfortunately, when you enter into the store, to the shopping center, how the stores are maintained, how the shop fronts look like. And I think the future shopping center and the management there cannot say okay for this kind of actions in the store. You need to stop it. The same thing is the customer promise. What are the tenants who are there? If the tenants are all the time changing, what customer can expect from the shopping center? What I'm finding this time there. The same is the opening hours. Shops are opening really wild. There is no common logic in many places. And there we need also help from you that you are working with the government when it's easy doing the business, that there is all the licenses and everything is clear and done in the right way, that it's a sustainable and ethical do the business in the shopping centers. Today, in many places where we have been open, we run this business as a retailer ourselves. There is 17 licenses what we need today to start the operations, and there is no time frame when you are getting these ones.
So if you look at it again as to what is required, and yes, so I think there is general consensus that it's all about omni-channel experience. It's not pure play, it's not bricks and mortar, it's about omni-channel experience. So the opportunity in India is big. Then how do you then get the right kind of development done with all the stakeholders coming together? So if you look at the dynamics, state governments are very keen on attracting investment. They are willing to facilitate and do whatever it takes to get investors in. The developers are also interested in putting together concepts which will work, for which they can get funding. There is enough capital, particularly when you talk about the foreign capital, which is available for investment within the country. So it's really about there are retailers, retail brands, foreign as well as domestic brands, new concepts which are constantly evolving. And even the domestic players are upping their game quite significantly, whether it is food retail, whether it is apparel retail, or whether it is any other form of experiential retail. So when you see the whole thing in silos, everything exists. Now, how does one bring it together? And this is where all the stakeholders, at least some of the stakeholders, the developers and the retailers, need to come together to approach the state government with a very solid plan that this is what we can do in terms of job creation in your state with 50 acres of land or 40 acres of land. And this is our master plan for your cities. And I know of a few state governments which are very open to the whole idea. So I think that needs to happen, and that needs to happen with greater level of speed. Whether it is the foreign developers or whether it is the Indian developers, it really doesn't matter. It's about driving consumption in the country. It's about increasing job opportunities in the country. And it is about, therefore, driving GDP growth of the country.
I quickly wanted to ask the panelists, if you were to do a shopping center for future, what is the size of the development that you would like to see first? What all mix that you think are missing, which probably is an opportunity for us to bring in? Maybe a little bit of more entertainment and food, and not necessarily only shopping. And what other things that can actually, looking into the future and given the dynamics of the country, that we can incorporate? Simply because that should be the takeaway from this discussion as well, beside the other things that we discussed. Anybody who would like to kind of take it up?
Speaking from the foreign investors' perspective, I think we need scale, right? The retailers need scale, the consumers need scale, and you need the scale to be flexible to adapt to what the future is going to bring. If we look at what we're doing in China now, we're probably up to 60% F&B and entertainment, and that clearly is much smaller here. But in China, unfortunately, we're on the very pointy end of working out how to deal with e-commerce, particularly in apparel, because we are seeing huge growth in e-commerce, but we're also now seeing huge growth in payment systems. So WeChat, which is a combination of Facebook and WhatsApp and Apple Pay, is almost entirely used for most transactions now, something that didn't even happen 6-9 months ago. So to capture the revenue going through your mall, you've got to be very IT savvy if you're going to share rents on a turnover basis, which is what we all want to do, because that's where the partnership comes through. So there's a huge increase in IT requirement, both on the collection but also on the marketing. We don't even use websites anymore, it's all social media. So again, you really need to change some of the staffing requirements you've got in your malls very heavily along the IT. And I think, signing 15-year leases, it's a very difficult thing to justify anymore, Who knows what's going to be happening in 15 years? Will we still have cinemas in 15 years? So again, I think creating the optionality and creating the flexibility, you need that scale.
Yes, certainly on the relation to sizing of the new malls, I think, it depends on what is the purpose of the mall. So when you look through what Intu is doing in Spain, their plan is to build mega malls, which is a day out, 200,000 square meter schemes, which are all encompassing, have leisure and work through on that. When you look at other developers, who are developing more convenience-based offers where for your daily needs. So it's really looking at where the gaps are within the market, and yeah, it's either going large for a whole destination, which you see Westfield and the Intu's doing, and then you've got smaller niche operators which are more day to day, or yeah, your needs of milk, bread, or the functional basis of shopping.
No, maybe only to add it also that since of course we cannot deny it that the commercial is there and it's knocking on our doors, but it's also to choose the concept mix and think that what people are buying from the internet, that's nobody is talking in India. And the second question is also that how wealthy is the e-commercial actually? How wealthy is the business? If I'm looking the results here for the Amazon and Flipkart, for me as a retailer, it's bad business. They don't do any profit from their operations. In Europe, we have a Zalando, which is a big operator. They have been operating many years already, but they have been not done any profitable year. So we all know as a business people that how many years you can run the operations which are not profitable. So yes, there is a growth in terms of selling, but how is the profit? And why we and many other our competitors are still willing to invest huge amount for the stores and grow in the brick and mortar. Because yes, 90% is still coming there, like you said earlier, and people are looking for the experience. The only thing is that you, as a shopping centers and as a retailer, we need to take care of our brand. The brand needs to be attractive. It needs to give some experience for the people, because that's they look for from the shopping centers.
So just to sum up, we're talking about 2 million square feet, a very high component of F&B, technology, upgrading the skills, maybe a large part of integrated township or integrated scheme, because you can actually, and that's the point that I wanted to make, on standalone basis, if you do a shopping center and you build a great mall, is greatly designed and financially viable, all that is good, versus integrated development, which allows you to the developer to cross-subsidize. So if you're able to make a higher income on the residential, if you're able to create office parks, by the way, I mean, we are building 40 million square feet every year of office space, and we're not building, that much shopping center, not even 10 million, for example, as of now, which defies logic in many ways. So I think there is an opportunity for developers to use their own equity and not debt, because debt you cannot service, cross-subsidize from the other, and create a business which is sustainable for future, and to be able to drive profit for the retailers, because unless and until you manage that business as a retail enterprise, we will fail, in terms of a future potential. And if you don't build good success stories, then I think we will come back to the same vicious circle of not enough participation of major investors because they're just not viable. And I think, so all the stakeholders will have to really come together, like you said, Krish, and make this somehow work. And that will decide, I think, the future. In case you want to say something.
Yeah, the one thing which comes to my mind, the Indian model will not, to my mind, will not be a US model or a UK model or a European model. So closer home, when you look at the Southeast Asian models, one of the challenges we have is that we have to rely on public transport for footfalls. Vehicle ownership is still very limited. And when going from one place to the other or from one mall to the other mall becomes challenging, that's when we say that e-commerce will leapfrog in India, because it's challenging to really do bricks and mortar shopping. But if these integrated developments are done in a manner that they are attached to a metro rail station, and it's easy to get into the mall. So if you see some of the malls in Hong Kong, in Thailand, in Bangkok, in Manila, in Kuala Lumpur, they're all integrated with public transport. And that's what drives sustainable traffic into the malls all the time. That's what makes it easier for the customer to get out of home and have that inclination to go to the mall and spend time. Otherwise, in India, we have to worry about first the transport and the traffic, and we just don't want to get out of our homes and rather place orders online. So that's where the difference will lie. So it's not about, I wouldn't talk about the size, because there are again examples in all these countries where there are small malls and big malls. If they are linked to public transport, they are very successful. And if they are isolated, then even elsewhere, they do face challenges in terms of driving traffic.
Thank you very much. I think it's a good opportunity for us to engage with the audience and take some questions. So it's something that we've not covered. This will be the opportunity to actually address. So if there are any questions out in the hall, please feel free to ask our panelists. Otherwise, it's good to wrap up. Let's give a few more seconds if people are taking time to get warmed up. We're good. Thank you very much, the panelists. Appreciate the efforts and your time here. And thank you very much, audience, for being a part of this discussion. Thank you. Bye.